Good day and welcome to my tutorial on photo restoration, how to repair and restore damaged photographs. And it comes with a subtitle here, how to repair an old torn photo in Photoshop. Without further ado, here is the image. Now, I have to admit, this is a fake. Okay, I've just taken an image from Pixabay and I've just torn it up in Photoshop. So, I don't want any comments in the comment section on that. It's fake. I didn't want to rip up a real photograph and I couldn't find any examples. So we're working with this one. I've even added a paper under it onto the image. So it's reasonably convincing. Right, so I've got 4 pieces to this image. What we're going to do is we're going to select around each individual piece and then we're going to transfer each individual piece independently onto their own layer on the layer palette. So then we can move and rotate and re-establish the correct orientation for each one of these pieces. Let's get into this, as they say. Now, just for the sake of time, I'm going to use a tool which I very rarely use, and that is the Magic Wand tool. You may or may not be able to do this with your image. It depends on how the scan works. It could be that the roof of your scanner just whites everything out, which is not photographic like this, or you might have a bit of a shadow. If you have a bit of a shadow, maybe go for the polygonal lasso and gently select around each piece. I'm just going to use the Magic Wand. And this is going to be so easy. So I'm going to click in the white area and then I'm going to invert my selection by holding down the Control key, the Shift key and pressing I. So as you can see now, each piece is selected. Wonderful. And then Control J. Now what happens there is we have just the pieces selected. Great. They're all on one layer though, so there's a bit of a problem there. No problem really. Polygonal lasso. I'm now going to navigate between each image, like sending a little boat down a canal. There we go. Excellent, so that's the first one. Control X to cut it, and then Control Shift V to paste it in the same place. That's now a separate layer. And just because I'm a bit of a swot on these things, I'm going to write top. Good to be organized. By the way, if your selection ever goes wrong, you're in the middle of a selection and it just doesn't work, just press escape and that will cancel out of it. If you make a mistake like that, backspace will unpick as many clicks as you wish. There we go, closing it by taking it to the start point and your cursor changes. Anyway, Control X to cut, Control Shift and V to paste. I think I'll name this one right. Going down to this little slice here. Selecting in between again. Select the first layer because this is where you're going to be taking the piece from. Control X, Shift Control V. Left. And of course, my powers of deduction, bottom. Yes, I did say bottom. There we go. So we've got each piece, top, right, left and bottom of the image all ready to go. Now, before we go any further, I think maybe the best thing to do here is clean up each one of these pieces, removing any of this overlapping paper, which you can see here, so that when you transform each piece, rotate it and bring it together, there will be nothing sort of obscuring the essential information in the image. Right, now that we have all the layer masks in place, I think it would be a good practice to start off by adding a fill layer behind all of these layer masks, just so it's easy to see what needs masking and what doesn't. So going to Layer, Fill Layer, Solid Color, just click on OK. That generates a layer. You may need to choose another color if you want, but I'm going to go with black. If you need to drag your layer into a particular position, just make sure it's at the bottom of the layer stack. See, now these areas here are more obvious. You can see where there are pixels overhanging. Far better than just having it with transparency. I've noticed that top for whatever reason, doesn't actually have anything that needs moving anyway, so we'll just ignore that one. So going to right, I'm going to use my brush tool. Soft brush, great. Might be worth going up to the hardness, right-click to bring up your brush controls. Go up to the hardness, put it at, say, 90% or something like that. Right, now, with your layer mask selected, go to the brush tool if you haven't already done so. Right-click, make sure you choose a soft, round brush, but at the same time, boost up the hardness. And with black as your color, if it's not, then just click on this reset up here and just flip them to black. Also, you can press X on the keyboard to hover between black and white. With black as your color, you can start masking away at pixels that you don't want. So that's what I'm doing right now. Lovely. I'm going to also use Shift and click to create lines. Save me having to very precariously paint out those areas. It's quite difficult to do it freehand. But if you do it as a line, it's much better. Right, that's one down. I've just got the others to do now, but let's have a look at what I've done so far. You can see it's looking pretty clean. Anything which is just left over, I can tap out now. That's great. Okay, moving on to the next. I think I'll go for the left now. I'll see you in a bit. Right, and we're done with that, I think. Oh, just one more to do. Going on to the last piece down here. Same again. Great. Now, I haven't been at all bothered by whatever's going on outside of the image, the frame. I can always deal with that later, but certainly all of the internals are now looking pretty good. There's just one little bit there, which I'm just going to clean up from the top layer. There. Perfect. I think that will do. Okay, so next we need to start bringing the pieces in alignment with each other and bring them together. And we can do this by, first of all, choosing a piece as a main reference. I think I might go for this one here. Fine, I'm going to use my Move tool. Just bring this down to, say, somewhere like here. Moving it a little out of the way of the other segments. And Control T to go into Free Transform. I will bring my pivot point to a recognizable, an easily recognizable spot. Maybe, for instance, a corner or just an area of detail which I could use as an alignment. Because now when I rotate, if I move that pivot point down to here by clicking and dragging it, when I rotate, everything will rotate around that pivot point. In fact, if I really want to be precise here, I could press Control R to bring up my rulers, if they're not already there, and click and drag on the vertical ruler just to establish a guide. And now I can see whether that's straight or not. I think about there will do it. Maybe if I put my guide directly on the edge of the photo, that will help. Yeah, something like that. Okay, I can commit to this now by clicking on the commit or by pressing enter on my keyboard. And that is now in place. I'm just going to get rid of that guide, Control, and hover over it, and then just drag it away like that. Next, I'm going to choose another layer. Maybe this one. So using the Move tool, I'm just going to click on that one there, or I could go to the layer stack and just select on it from there. Press Control T to bring up Free Transform. And this time, I'm going to allow this area here to join with this area here. It's going to be very difficult to do with the mouse, so I'm going to use, whilst in Free Transform mode, my cursor keys to gently nudge that into position. Again, looking for my pivot point, going to drag and drop that on that join that I've already established. And now I can just rotate this to suit. Now the reason why I'm doing this is, doing it this way with a pivot point, is because if you ever put a poster up onto a wall, let's say you're using drawing pins for instance, you'll often start by putting one corner in first, and then you get the next drawing pin ready, and you then bring up the other corner. And then you can use that pivot point as a way of ensuring that the top is straight. And we're doing exactly the same thing here. So now that that pivot point is fixed, I know that whatever happens, that's going to stay put, although I could give it a bit of a nudge. All I need to do now is just bring that in like that. It's not going to be perfect. It doesn't have to be. We can deal with this later. Press enter. Lovely. Moving on to this one here. Same process. Just going to repeat it for the last two. There we go. With a bit of nudging and a little bit of negotiation, I think that is now looking pretty good. Right, where to go from here? We have all of these layers. Everything's placed now as it needs to be, but as you can see, there's lots of gaps. There are bits missing. There are still lines. I mean, I don't think there's anywhere where you can't see a line. So that's not a problem. That's not at all a problem. Next, we're going to create a new layer at the top of the layer stack, and we're going to do all of our repairs on that layer, filling in any of the gaps that are left after this process. So I've created a new layer. I think I might name this one Repairs or something like that. Is that correct? That'll do. Repairs. Great. And I will choose... Let's see now, let's go for the clone stamp tool, good old reliable clone stamp tool, and I'm going to make sure that current and below, or even better than that, all layers, whichever you wish, is chosen. And using the Alt key, or the Option key if you're using a Mac, I'm going to target an area, say over here, which looks good, to apply over here. So it's just a question of targeting, making sure you have the right size of brush for the job, and then painting. And you can see that my targeted area is now following the painted area. I may need to adjust that slightly. Keep on selecting from different areas. Don't just stick with one. Just keep on varying. Just keep on adding variety in there. I've got a bit of an alignment here, so clicking up here. Here we are, lovely. I think I might do the same here, or actually down here, just to remove any of those. Now, this is the problem you're going to have. You look for an area to take the information from, the target area, you press Alt, you click, you take your finger off the Alt, you go over and start painting, but then you realize that the tone is different. It's a different, it's lighter or it's darker. There's a bit of a gradient going on. So in that kind of scenario, you might want to use the Heal Brush tool instead. So that's what I'll do now. I'm just clicking on there, holding down, choosing the Heal tool. Now if I do that, it automatically adapts rather intelligently to its surroundings. It's a very good tool, the Heal tool, but it's not good for everything. It doesn't always do the best job. Because if I go close to the edge of something, can you see the way it just bleeds out? So using the stamp tool, which is just S on the keyboard, jump between the two, S and J for stamp. Sorry, S for stamp, J for heal. I can jump between the two and change when I feel it's appropriate. There we go, that's one line out there. Great. Let's see if I can get away with using the heal tool on this bit. Yeah, that's pretty good. You can also get away sometimes using the spot heal tool, which is the one just above the healing tool, healing brush tool, which can in certain situations do a good job. I'm going to use it very carefully here though. Don't want to lose any information. May as well get rid of those blemishes while I'm at it. It's one of those tools where you've really got to dab with it rather than work as if it was a stamp tool or a healing brush tool. Don't forget, change the size of your brush. If you're dealing with areas of very tiny detail, you might want to use a smaller brush. Now I've just noticed that the alignment's not quite right here. Fortunately, that's an area that I haven't worked on yet. I've joined these two together with the repairs layer, but this one I haven't. So I now have the opportunity just to select that layer and nudge it a little into position. Hopefully that will make sense further up. Let's see now. I might need to go back to Control T, free transform, and just see if I can refine this rotation a little more. That'll do. Back to my repairs layer. One thing I'd recommend, if you're working on an area of very important detail like a face, it might be worth zooming in. Control plus to zoom in, Control minus to zoom out. Now I've zoomed in excessively on this one. This is 300%, as you can see up here, but it is a small image, so that is fine. So yeah, if you're working on area of very complex detail, do zoom in. Okay, ran into a problem here. As you can see, a lot of this young lady's mouth is damaged. So, best course of action is to look for somebody who has a similar mouth. I think maybe this lady here, her mouth might be slightly closer in resemblance than others. So, I'm going to use my stamp tool, just take from the corner there, Alt-click, and then perhaps just place here. You know, if I had time, I would cut that bit out and put it onto another layer and bring it over and transform it, but time doesn't allow today. Ah, we're done. That was quick. Okay, so there we go. That looks pretty impressive. If I was to switch the repairs layer on and off, you can see where we've been with it. Next thing to do is to crop the image. So, choosing the crop tool, I will start in this corner here. I will click and drag, making sure, of course, these are cleared. You don't want to start cropping it to a lower resolution. There we are. And pivot point, very similar to using transform. You take the pivot point, drop it in the top corner there, and then I can bring this in, and then maybe I need to rotate it a little bit. If you hold down the Control key or the Command key if you're using a Mac, you can get that aligned properly. I don't know if this is going to work first time round. I'm actually going to remove that frame that was around it. Don't need it. I decided. Yeah, that'll do now. Quite a few old photographs, they were cut out by hand, so you'll find sometimes corners are a bit wonky, so you make your own mind up on what bits you want to cut out and what bits you don't. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to press enter, and that looks pretty good. There are a few bits left over down here. Nothing's stopping me using the stamp tool and just filling those gaps in. Quickest way of dealing with it, really. No one's really going to notice that. It's just really to take the edge away from there. There we are. Don't know if there's any other bits. Oh, there's a bit up here. Nearly got away with it. Lovely. Only one thing remains now, and that's getting rid of all this dirt. Now, this particular tutorial is not about removing dirt from an image. It's about bringing together a torn photograph. So I'm going to do all of this in fast forward, but I'm just going to give you the heads up. I'm going to use the stamp tool, I'm going to use the healing brush tool, and also the healing spot tool for this process. All of it's going to be on my repairs layer as well. There we go, that's not bad at all. We now have a clean image. Only one thing left to do, and that of course is do some color correction. If you want to see a tutorial about color correction, then do check out this link up here. I'm going to get on with that now. All right, there we go. I actually opted to sort of make a uniform vignette around the image because as you can see from the original, it was just along the top and the right. So I've put some at the bottom and the left there. That is with curves. Please do check out my tutorial on that subject. That's all I have for you today. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've gleaned plenty of good, useful information about Photoshop and repairing torn images within the application. I'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe.